Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hola.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Hola.
Welcome to our second Future Talk of February. I'm Gabriela Damián Miravete, and I will be the moderator of this awesome panel about post-pandemic conventions, how we adapted to these new circumstances of not being able to gather to celebrate our beloved genres and comic books and works of literature and cinema and all that. And I'm going to present the beautiful people who is with me today. Let me start with LD Lewis. Hi, LD. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
LD is an award-winning speculative fiction writer and editor and serves as a founding creator, art director, and project manager for the World Fantasy Award-winning and Hugo Award-nominated FIYAH Literary Magazine. She also serves as a grant administrator for the Speculative Literature Foundation, FIYAHCON director, and a researcher for the Levar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Burton Reads podcast. She is the author of A Ruin of Shadows, and she has a lot of interesting publications in Strange Horizons and other magazines. So welcome, LD.
I hope I'm not blushing because I've never heard like my entire bio read out loud before, but it seems like a lot.
Yeah, it is.
But thank you for having me.
Such an honor, LD. Thank you for being here. We have also Cali de los Santos from Brazil. She's representing Relampeio Festival from Brazil. Cali de los Santos is a writer of horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and a narrative designer for video games. Thank you so much for being with us, Cali.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I'm going to present Francesco Verso, who is from Italy, and he's representing today FutureCon. Yeah. He's not the moderator of this panel, but he's going to talk about FutureCon. And Francesco has an impressive resume, which I'm going to summarize now. Francesco was born in Bologna and is one of the most interesting voices of contemporary Italian science fiction and editor of future fiction. Over the last 12 years, he has won many science fiction awards, and since 7 years, he's the editor of the multicultural project Future Fiction. His books include Antidoti Umani, Idol, which was a Urania Award 2009, Next Human, Odissea and Italia Award 2013, and Blockbusters, Urania Award 2015. So thank you, Francesco.
Pleasure. Thank you.
You are the people responsible for us being here also, so thank you.
Yeah, blame it on me.
Next is Jeremy Torres Montero. Hi, Jeremy.
Hola,
He's
¿qué tal?
representing Uróboros, a festival of science fiction, horror, fantasy, fantastic literature from Peru. He's a Peruvian writer, manager of the publishing house Speedwagon Media Works, and co-founder of Uróboros, a multidisciplinary diffusion platform for speculative fiction, terror, and fantasy. He has published 5 books, and his short stories appear in some Latin American magazines. Thank you, Jeremy.
Gracias, thank you.
So next is Blanca Rodriguez, representing Hispacon. She also has an impressive work. She's from A Coruña. Que riquiña, Blanca.
Yes.
studied translation and interpretation at the University of Vigo and has been a freelance translator since 2001. She's very active in the Spanish fandom and has been involved as a volunteer in cons and festivals such as the FIYAHCON or Celsius 232. In January 2020, she became president of Portico, Spanish Association of Fantasy, Science Fiction and Terror, being the first woman to be elected for the position in Portico's 20 years of history. Congratulations, Blanca.
Thank
we are
you.
so glad to have you here.
I'm honored to be here.
And finally, my dear partner in crime, Andrea Chapela from Mexico. Andrea Chapela is a Mexican writer. She's the author of a young adult fantasy series, an essay collection, and 2 short story collections. She studied chemistry at UNAM, our national university, and has a creative writing in Spanish MFA from the University of Iowa. She's a graduate of Clarion West 2017 and part of the Mexican X initiative. She has received the National Gilberto Owen Literature Prize for Stories in 2018. And in 2020, she took part in the organization of Mexicona, Imaginación y Futuro, a series of talks around speculative literature. Her work has been published in English in Samovar, in translation, and Tupelo Quarterly, and is forthcoming in Lightspeed. Andrea, thanks for being here to talk about Mexicona, our Mexican con. So I wanted to start like addressing the white elephant, which is the pandemic. And just like on a personal note, I was telling you before we came out live that for me personally, online cons, save my mental health and my linger for being with other people and to share the passion for science fiction and for literature and for imagining the future and all that. But please tell me, how was that for you, if you want, personally? But also, how was, before the pandemic, this circumstance in your own countries? What was the landscape of cons in your own lands, and how this changed? How was this process of changing and adapting? So maybe we should start addressing that kind of history of our cons in our countries, and maybe the personal history of what the change to online possibility to gather affected you personally. So let's start with Francesco.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you are indeed right, because the situation wasn't very good when the pandemic started, and I really have to thank Relampeio for inviting me, and it was April, I think, and from that moment something happened, and it made us aware of the fact that we had a network. We had not just a national network, but we had an international network that was just silent. It was just there, hiding in the darkest web. So during the summer, we kind of talked with some of the people that made Relampeio real, and we decided to start something in September. So as you said, it's really we try to apply a kind of martial art. The coronavirus hit us. We try to resist, be resilient, and use this negative energy as a positive energy. And we will go, of course, deeper into that. But when it comes to the situation previously in Italy. Yeah, we're not a big country, but we had a long tradition of science fiction conventions. I just want to say that in 1972, Italy hosted the first EuroCon, the first European science fiction convention. It dates back to around 50 years ago, and it was in Trieste. So that is to say that we might be, small, but we are consistent. we do it for a very long time. And in Italy, we have a couple of conventions. One is in Milan with a lot of people. Compare, of course, relatively to the size of our, genre. And then we have another one in Fuji, close to Rome, where we should have been hosting the EuroCon this year, but we don't know yet. So let's say the situation is bad at the moment, of course, but we try to we try to resist, and in some ways we even fight back and organizing pretty nice things to keep the community together in this very, very bad moment.
Thank you. So, LD, how was it for you?
Well, last year was actually the first year of FIYAHCON, and prior to that, and I think we did it mostly because the pandemic created a situation where virtual events would be common or popular. So it wasn't like we were starting out completely from scratch. We had a framework for doing it, from having to work virtually on Zoom platforms. So we took that knowledge and built a convention around it. I'm mostly a writer, but I always tell people that I'm a selfish writer. I write for myself. I like my stories, and I'm the only person who matters, when in terms of writing my stories. But with so much just general suffering, struggling going on last year, it was hard to be selfish. And so FIYAHCON was sort of born out of a need to help our community. I'm based in the US. FIYAHCON is based in the US. We have a lot of conventions here, a lot of speculative fiction fandoms. And in all of those, there tended to be a segment of the community that was overlooked or underserved. And so FIYAHCON sort of set out to solve some of those things. So we put the convention together in about 4 months. It ended up being a convention and an award series. So we introduced the Ignite Awards as well. We celebrate inclusive efforts and diverse representation in speculative literature. And that came together in about 4 months. We started planning actively about July, August-ish, and ended up having the convention actually in October. 1,200 people, over 1,200 people were registered and showed up. And it was so well received. We thought it would just be kind of an experimental thing. And I think in a lot of ways it's still experimental. We're going to remain virtual going forward. So we have to find sort of new and creative ways to do things virtually so that, people aren't getting Zoom fatigue, constantly being on events only on Zoom. So we're doing it again this year. And it turned into a situation where we had a main event and then we had a free tier of overnight content that was friendlier to Global South hours, so that people weren't up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning here doing things. We have a great team where people are, coming in from all over the world. And I'm excited we get to do it again.
Thank you, LD. Blanca, how it was for you?
Okay, first thing, I would like to say that I'm quite sure I'm representing the oldest festival in this panel, because Hispacon started in 1969. I must remember you that we had a fascist dictatorship in our country. It was a hard time to be a nerd in Spain. So for me, it was, I started as a president in 2020, and it was like, okay, first, my first months, and then the pandemic, and you have this responsibility. You're taking on one of the oldest geeky conventions, and you have to do something about that, no? At first, of course, like everyone else, we had planned something physical near Sevilla, and suddenly we realized this is not going to happen. This is not, it's not going to be possible. We're not going to risk being caught in the middle of the second wave, which happened, okay, because it was in November. And we were very sad, and it was like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. I could say some of the names that we had in the past in Hispacon. We had Terry Pratchett, we had Andrei Sapkowski, we had Ian McDonald, Guillermo del Toro, Laura Gallegos, Aliette de Bodard. So many people, so big. And then we were like, oh my God, this is going to be canceled. And suddenly we said, in Spanish, we say, hacer de necesidad virtud, which means turning a need into a virtue. And we said, okay, we can bring anyone now. We can do it online, and we can have anyone. I can tell you that the name of Stephen King was mentioned. And it was like, oh my God, you're going crazy now. We almost died of success, because we were so, at the moment that we realized that so many doors were open for us. We can have people from America. We can have, actually, Gabriela was part of one of the panels. We had people from South America. We have people from the Arabian Peninsula, which never happened before in Spain. We never had a panel of Arabic writers in Spain before. So we started to going crazy. And Gabriela was saying that conventions nearly saved my life during pandemics. Convention nearly killed me because it was such a hard work. But I compare it to having a baby. Okay, it nearly kills you, but it's great. So, yeah, it was such a hard work, and there were so many things that could go wrong. And I can probably say that nothing went wrong. All the panels went like clockwork. There were so many people working so hard, and it was like, this is a game changer, because, for instance, Hispacon never before had what's the word, streaming, and now everybody is like, you're going to do the streaming every year, right? Like, how can you not? Now, even if we can be together, if we can go to the place, you can reach so many people that will never come because they are in Australia or whatever. So it's like, maybe next year we can have even participants or speakers who are not there. You can mix people who are there at the stage and people who are online. So now it's like a whole new world is open to do so many things that we don't even know how many we can do. And it's exhausting, but really exciting for us.
Thank you, Blanca. So Jeremy told us about Uróboros.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to talk about that question towards confinement in Peru. Here is hard because pandemic took us with a medical history through to corruption. No, here presidents and the congressmen and everyone do whatever they can to get the vaccines for them. That was in September from the past year. No? But we need to know that because in Peru, culture is the last rueda del coche, how they say it, the last wheel from the car. No, culture is always the last thing you think when you talk about presupuestation and everything. So when was March when they say we cannot go outside, we cannot how you say it? We have a quarantine that was forced into us. Okay, was the first thing. So we as writers, we need the book fairs to live from our books. We need the book fairs because they give us little spaces, no, the worst spaces as sci-fi writers, because Peru is always gravitating towards realism, no? This is the serious literature, no? And I think this happened because as a colonial country, no, literature was a way to silence the people from the Sierra and the Selva, no, the Sierra and the jungle, identities or ways to see the life. Because of that, they always promote the realism, no? Vargas Llosa, Julio Ramón Rivero, and that's okay, that's great because it's a Nobel Prize. But also they silence, they throw these fantastic writers because they were also fantastic, no? From mythos like the histories from the sun, the Inti, the Quillan, etc. They throw them in silence, no? That's the context, no? The first thing. So when that's happened, we as young writers, no, escritores del género, we have no way to go, no places to have for us, no. We don't have the worst, the worst, how you say it, the worst tables in book fairs, no. We don't have el Congreso de Literatura Fantástica. We don't have nothing secure for us. So it was March, then in April, Paul Darmego, autor de Pandemia Z, one of my best friends.
We sent him a big hug to Paul Darmego.
And Luis Comalaza, my business partner, and Julio Guzmán and Connie Tapia Monroy from Catartes Ediciones, we all talk about what we're going to do as a business model and as writers and people in this space that give us space, because we are not only writers, we were sci-fi writers, fantasy writers, horror writers. We are Paraya from Paraya, no? So we speak and we decide, okay, let's make a binational convention between Peru and Chile. Something small, no? Just a few writers, people from Catartes, people from Speedwagon, some friends like Alexis Parraguirre, Armando Roselot, etc. But then people start talking about this convention that has no name. They start speaking, Amparo, se me fue el apellido de la señora, Amparo, I forget that last name, people from Historias Pool, Mota de Cuba, a lot of writers from other places start writing to us, so asking questions about this convention that is going to happen for Spanish-speaking countries. And we say, yes, okay, come, yes, okay, let's start not thinking binational, let's start thinking global, no? As they say before. And we get this is the Chilean authors like Francisca del Solar, and we saw that we have something from like 8 countries, Cuba, Dominican Republic, España, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Estados Unidos, United States, and 60 guests. So we were scared, okay, because was our first time. Was the first time we were doing something like that, no? But we need to learn how to do this because it was going to be something in Zoom, and to write that and to put it on Facebook. But then we have to make it live. We have to put it a name for that event, and we call it Uróboros because the Chavin culture have a snake, iconography of a snake. No? Entonces we took that because we want to show people we are Peruvian, we are South American, we are Spanish-speaking countries, from a Spanish-speaking country, and we want to have that because we want to show these colonial people that we are cipher writers, fantastic writers, and there was no more time for colonialism in our places. No, was a way to make a statement. No, so we are not only Peruvian and Chilean, we are a lot of people. No? And that was great. No? That was the best thing that happened. I think is like they say before, tomar lo peor de lo mejor de lo peor, no? Take the best thing from the worst case scenario and make it happen, no? But it was not only something I could do. No, it was not something I could do alone. No? It was Paul, Dark, Luis, Connie, Julio en su momento. Julio at that time. No, it was all the people that come together and build these bridges to speak, because that's what is this all about. No, speak about and ask the questions. No, because I think science fiction and literature in general is about asking ourselves questions. What will happen in this scenario? But for us is what will be happening in the future? No? How we solve the problems that will happen, like in solar punk, cyberpunk, etc. No? And that's what I can say.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. I just love that we all confessed here that we were so scared because that was right, but that we were also very happy, and it was also a collaborative, inevitably a collaborative work. So that's another beautiful thing. So Cali, how was that for Relampeio and for you?
Well, I think it's very nice that you asked about like the context, because if not for the context, I don't think Relampeio would have like existed. Here in Brazil, we have some conventions, but there's this specific one which happens in my city, which is in the south of Brazil. I live in the southernmost state of the country, called Odisseia de Literatura Fantástica. And although we have other very big events, there is Flippy, there's Flip-Poppy, they don't focus on like speculative fiction, but Odisseia focuses. It's like the Odyssey of fantastic literature. That's the translation for the name. And it's an amazing event which has been happening for like maybe 7 years now, and I only found out about it in 2018, but I went to it and I loved it. And then there was 2019 and it was amazing, and it's a place, you know, it's a moment in which people from all over the country come to Porto Alegre, and we all like get together and go to the karaoke after it's done. You know, after we talk a lot about fantasy and horror and sci-fi. And when the pandemic started, we were like, well, will it happen online? But the organizers felt like it was not like, the timing was not good, you know, for it to happen, even if online. And we were kind of left without that amazing event which happens every year and which is something that we look forward to. And so Ana Hushi and Gianna Bianchi had this idea, and it was the beginning of April, and we organized everything in 2 months.
Wow.
So like just like LD, you know, it's crazy, right? I don't know what happens to us, but we kind of click and just do everything that we have to do. And we also went through this process of like choosing a name. The good thing of talking, you know, after a lot of people is that I can make links. we had this process of also like, okay, what is it going to be called? And Relampeio is a very oral way of talking about lightning, like a lightning storm. And we wanted this festival, this event, to be that, to spark something in people. And it was really rushed, really, really rushed. But I think it also was amazing because, yeah, it's online, so we can invite anyone and everyone. And we did, like, we sent emails to people that we knew were not going to join us, because you know what? We can send the email. We already have the no, so let's try for a yes. And we also put a lot of effort into trying to find South American authors and authors, from outside of the United States. Of course, we did have Americans, and it's something that here in Brazil, like the United States, is a huge reference for everything. Things that are a big hit there are the ones which are going to be translated. It's much easier to enter a bookstore, if we could enter a bookstore, but it's easier to find North American writers. Sometimes it's easier than finding Brazilian authors. It's crazy. Like, our market is very much directed, to just importing lots of things. So we tried to make it very international, but really international. It's very common here, and I don't know how it is for you in your countries, but here it's very common for an event to be international, and it's just like American people who are invited. So we wanted to make it really international, and Francesco was a big help with that, because he knows like everyone from around the world. So it's amazing. And then we were able to invite people from Argentina and from Mexico, and from just different parts of the world, which are not always contemplated in events here in Brazil. And so it was just amazing, like really a great experience, everyone coming together and working towards that. It was just really amazing.
Thank you, Cali. So, Andrea, tell us about Mexicona, you and Mexicona.
Okay. So first, I like listening to all the cons, because it gives a sense of how all these events are like siblings in this pandemic. They came to be in this online pandemic world, and now they have similarities between them, but the contexts are very different. So for Mexico, I don't think, and Gabriela can see more, but I've been reading and talking to people, but I don't think we ever had like a big event or a con. There are more like congress, festivals, book fairs, but nothing that was, there were some in the 90s, at the end of the 90s and the 2000s, that were there for a couple of years. And I never attended any of them. I think I was too young to even know they existed. And so for maybe the last 10 years, there hasn't been anything really. And in fact, the four organizers, which is me and Gabriela, Olivia, Brenda, and Ileana Vargas, we met and we became friends, or we already knew each other, but we really met at a WorldCon in the United States. So it was also going to the WorldCon with the Mexican X Initiative that propelled us into saying, this is great. Like, this is a place where we get to be creators, we're also fans, right? And it has this thing that I find very nice about speculative literature, that is that everyone is doing stuff in it, but also everyone likes it a lot. And so we're fans and creators at the same time. And I think that's why fandom is such an important thing in our genre, that it's not in other writing genres, right? And I think that's where the cons come from and are so important, but we didn't have any in Mexico. And so after we met each other, we started thinking, how can we do this? And what would it mean to do a Mexican con? And I don't know if we actually think that Mexicona is a con, even if it's in there in the name. The name came about because it was like a joke for us to say, yes, we're going to the Mexican con, so Mexicona, and it's female, so it has the A. and it never went, we couldn't find a name that we liked better or that encompassed better what we wanted to try to do. And in fact, so the WorldCon we went to was 2018. So we talked about this for a long time. And we actually, before the pandemic, we were trying to figure out how to do it on site. And if we had the money or the resources to, or we could ask for a grant or what to do so we could make it live. And then the pandemic hit and we always met like once a month, or we started meeting once a week on Sundays to talk and just have a beer together on Zoom. And we decided we wanted to still try. And like everyone said, we discovered that because of the pandemic and just going online, we could just invite whoever we wanted, which is, I think, one of the biggest pleasures of doing it this way. And so instead of just being a Mexican thing, we said like, okay, so we want to have this conversation, and we want to have this conversation in Spanish and just see what is happening towards the south of Mexico, because also as Cali was saying, in Mexico everything is routed and talked with the United States, right? We're so close, it's almost impossible not to. And we wanted to turn our eyes to the other way and see what was happening in Spanish. Also, we had people from Spain and people from a lot of countries, and there were 2 weekends of talks, and it was great. And everyone said very tiring to organize. I think we did it in like 4 months, maybe 4 to 5 months, and it was great. But at the same time, I think that allowance of being able to talk to people without having to think about borders made it very special.
Yeah, it was. Thank you, Andrea. And I want to highlight something that you said about fandom. It's a very special thing, and this way of living creative works, it's very unique to this kind of of genres. So I want to ask everyone here, why is it so special? What are we obtaining from this very tiring and stressful process? In the majority of the cases, without a cent. Even we give our resources to making this possible. In Mexicona, that was the way. We haven't any economical external resources. So what not only us, but the community gains that we don't find in congresses, in academic environments, why this is so special. And we were talking about before that it's very common to label this kind of events as childish and immature. They don't want to grow up, they don't face reality. But I think, and please let me know if you agree with me, but I think it's kind of the opposite. These events are, especially in the last year and in the last maybe decade, these events are really political in some ways. Imagination, it's now a very political thing, and in the best sense of the word. We are empowering ourselves through imagination and through maybe innocence, maybe this spark of childishness. I'm quoting the word because it's a tricky concept. So tell us, what do you obtain personally, and what do you think that we collectively obtain from these spaces? I think Jeremy put it out beautifully when he was talking about Uróboros. So please elaborate in your own contexts. How does that place with your own needs as a collective and your own personal needs also? So let's start again with Francesco.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. The idea is that without imagination, we would be left with our reality, and that sucks. So basically, we have seen a year that is one of the most devastating in centuries. I don't want to go back to that. I want to try to find my way to escape from this kind of reality, but not in a childish and escapist way, but in a very practical exit strategy to this never-ending dystopia that we are living in. So personally, I think diversity is our biggest richness. The main effort that we put into creating the FutureCon was to put together 65 guests for more than 20 countries. And these people are not living in one country. They are actually living in more than 20 countries, and they are speaking many different languages. We all spoke in English, but the main effort was to put together people that were really coming from different countries. I was coming from Italy, Anna and Fabio was coming from Brazil. We had you, Gabi. We had Cristina from Dubai and Spain. We really wanted to have a board that was addressing the issue that many people here addressed, the cultural dominance of the English science fiction and American science fiction. We all, respect, of course, but when it comes to giving voice to other literature and other cultures, especially when we're talking about science fiction, I mean, we are to go where no one has ever gone before, right? So we need to start doing that, not just saying it. So we went there and asked people from China, from Japan, from Korea, from India, from Africa, many different African countries like Kenya and Zimbabwe. We had people from many South American countries, from Cuba. We had people from Russia, we had people from France. That means crossing the borders, really. The real inclusivity is also trying to do your best in order to give up your own identity and embrace another identity. Be ready to crush the paywall, because the paywall is, of course, a big issue. $20 in the US or in Italy is not the same as $20 in Brazil or India or in and other developing countries. So we also address this issue very directly, saying we give everything to the community for free, and every panel has been recorded on YouTube, and it's going to be there forever, as long as YouTube is standing, of course. But that means we want to change the rules of the game. We want to start to look at the science fiction convention as something that gives voice and representativeness to everybody, not just in theory, but in reality. And then I will make a proposal after for us here. We are representing communities. Because I think this is the right time to create a discontinuity with the past. Because if we don't demand a change will not be done from top to the bottom. We need to, raise our hands and say, look, things can be done differently, and we here have proved that it can be done. So we have to push and keep doing that. Okay.
Thank you, Francesco. LD, please tell us about you and your community.
Well, as everyone stated, a lot from the US just kind of gets exported and ends up sort of overshadowing local cultures. And so since we are based in the States, we also kind of set out to, if we're going to be exported, you need to see more brown faces, you need to see more Black faces, you need to see more of our local cultures, not just, you know, the dominant narrative that also dominates a lot of science fiction fantasy conventions. And so I'm a little combative by nature. And so what happened is in a lot of our discourse, if you're active on Twitter, you've seen it before, situations with like Worldcons or SIPWA's Nebula Awards or a lot of the larger US exported conventions, there have been issues with accessibility. There have been excuses presented for not having live captioning available for panels. There have been excuses for why panels are all white or all male or all something. And so with FIYAHCON, what we set out to do is like, okay, well, these are all excuses and we're going to show you now how it's possible to actually get these things right if you care. And so my challenge to all of the older sort of legacy conventions was always to consider, if you're going to consider yourself a community organization, it needs to be reflective of the community. You can't be so beholden to the name, the weight that your organization carries, and think that, you know, oh, people should be honored to be part of this event, so we're going to have people who are providing our content pay to attend. That doesn't make any sense. So we are paywalled, but we do have a free tier for the exact reasons Francesco said. And with that money, what we were able to do was also actually manage to pay our volunteers, which is not something that's a standard practice. We were able to provide physical merchandise. We were able to stash money away for this year's convention because things like captioning and things, it does cost money. And we were able to FIYA, the actual magazine entity that I'm part of, the entire staff over there is volunteer as well. With all of that income, we were also able to pay FIYA staff and expand it. And then what else did we do? We ended up donating a few $1,000s to a national bail fund because last year was also a very tumultuous year for us on a socio-political landscape as well.
Oh my God, wow. So
we were gifted a lot of additional money. The magazine is now able to pay its contributors pro rates. We donated, I believe it was $5,000 to National Bail Fund. That's from refunded tickets for our programming participants and our volunteers. Volunteers didn't have to pay, attendees didn't have to pay. I mean, volunteers and programming participants didn't have to pay. So, and we also had a large number of sponsored attendees as well. So it was all about dismantling what we've considered the standard practice in the industry and in fandom. And we did it all with a diverse and inclusive staff. And the community in attendance also reflected that. We had no one we had to ban outright for, you know, racist or otherist attacks. We had, there were no issues with that. And we were able to sort of upgrade our programming items from a a lot of other conventions will do sort of 101 level, you're just starting out exploring this concept of inclusivity. We took that and like, okay, well, this is the default. And now we can actually get in depth into some of these topics. So I think we benefited from it financially, of course, in the things that we're able to do now, also in service of the community. And then the community gets better content, better ways to move forward. I drafted a retrospective that outlined all of our expenses how it's possible to do some of these things that conventions are saying are not possible. And we hope that people sort of use that as a framework to improve what they're able to do going forward on their events.
Thank you, LD. So, Jeremy, tell us about that and Uróboros.
Yeah,
you told us a little bit before, but
yeah. I think, bueno, I just think, I experienced that there is still a lack of space to talk about speculative fiction in my country, in Peru, but it's changing because there are conventions, there's like Kingdom from Roberto Lagos, that were the first type of events from us, no, from us, the geeks, the nerds, whatever we can call us. And in these events, we talk about comic, manga, movies, series, but also there were people talking about the Dune saga, Harry Potter, books. There were people talking about books in those spaces, and these people were looking for writers, but we don't know if, I'm talking about before the first Congreso de Literatura Fantástica, I'm talking a few years back. And in Peru was that, no? These little islands where people gathered to talk about sci-fi and other types of escapisms, no, as they say, no, childish them, no, people in costume doing whatever they can to not be adult people, no. That was the way they look at us, no, and finding the space to be ourselves, and I'm talking about to find places we can talk about the things we want, understanding I don't know if I have to say seriousness, but I will use the word, the seriousness of the topics we explore with our questions, because science fiction make us wonder if something will happen, no? As I said before, no? Solar punk, ecofuturismo, cyberpunk.
Oh, I think Jeremy froze, or is it just me?
Oh, I think he froze.
I think he froze.
Jeremy, come back. It was so interesting what he was saying, but maybe we'll wait for him to get back, and we'll jump to you, Kali, maybe.
Okay.
Hoping Jeremy will connect again soon.
Yes. So, well, I ended up picking lots of things that in what like the others have said already that I would like to address. First, one thing that's important is that I tell you that when I speak about, we importing a lot of US culture, it's not like really US culture. It's like white, cis, male, straight, without disabilities culture, American culture, right? Works of Samuel Delany were first published in Portuguese last year, for example. In Brazil, yes, it's absurd. Octavia Butler has been translated, I think, in the last 10 years, it's crazy. So of course there is this bigger picture, it's not just, well, American. it's a series of other things that go together with that. And what we did, with Relampeio, and I think that's what's very nice, and that's what's like has me, even though it was super rushed last year, just doing it all again this year, because we were able not only to bring these people from lots of countries, but we also had people translating all the talks real time. So we were able, not only to bring these people, because it would be too easy, let's say, to just have people speaking English and Spanish. And well, okay, if you can understand, you can understand. But we do know that that's not the reality for like most Brazilians. That's just not the reality of Brazilians. I mean, we have 11 million people here which can't even read Portuguese, of course, in the age, right, in which they should be alphabetized. So it's crazy to expect people to just know other languages. So we had people translating in real time all of our talks, and they're all available. And then after that, we subtitled them, so people could watch with the live translation, which was like on the comments in YouTube, or later on with the subtitles. So it's about bringing these different perspectives to Brazilian people and making sure that it's as accessible as possible. Like this year, we're trying to see some other ways to be even more inclusive, and we're still figuring some things out. But it's very important, that people have access to information. And if we say that we live in the age of information because everything is there, everything is online, we kind of sometimes have to create spaces which like curate these information and just takes it to people. So I think that's really something that's important, and I think Relampeio did a very nice job with that. And I think that helps us with our creativity. In many of the talks, we had people talking about their processes, and it can be very different for each person. But there were moments in which like people who were talking, and then everyone in the comment section were like crying. Like really, really, I cried a lot because we were talking about these experiences of creating things. And of course, sometimes creating can be very lonely, and sometimes it's a process that you do by yourself. But then you go and you talk to other people, and you have some struggles which are the same, and you see how that reflects in their literature, and it's just a great exchange. And it's important because I think creativity is like a field. If you don't really spread any seeds around there, nothing's going to grow. You have to have these exchanges, and to have them with different people, and people who are like you, but also people who are not like you. Like if I only listen to people who are just like me, I'm never going to learn anything new. So I think that's the importance of having festivals, and I think the importance of having Relampeio, trying to bring different voices which are not the ones that we're used to hearing. That makes an impact. That really does.
Thank you, Kali. One of the beautifulest things of knowing people from Brazil, from Relampeio, was that we had those episodes about crying together, and Renata
Yes.
called them Lloracon, which is like crying con. And now every time it happens, we are invoking crying con, Lloracon, because it is very beautiful to share that kind of feeling. Thank you, Kali. So Jeremy, you're back. Yay.
Yeah, sorry, the cat throws down the modem, so I have to install again the computer.
Don't
sorry,
worry, we're happy you're back. Maybe we can come back with you with the next question, and you can put them together if you want.
Yes, okay.
Perfect. So Blanca, tell us about.
Okay, I have to apologize because I had a 7-year-old crying her eyes out in the next room because she couldn't remember her homework. So she couldn't remember what she had to do. And I started hearing someone crying. It was obviously my daughter. So I couldn't leave her like that. I'm not so cruel. Okay, so there are so many things have been said. In the first question, Jeremy said that they don't have this tradition of speculative literature. I think this is quite true for every Spanish-speaking country, because we come from a tradition of a very realistic literature. We don't have the English-speaking Poe in the 19th century. So this is true for Spain too. It is quite easier to get anything translated than to people don't know any Spanish science fiction or fantasy writer other maybe than Laura Gallego or Elia Barceló or whatever. So for us, we have this. We are a Mediterranean country. So in cons, the biggest part is the bar. Okay. And I actually mean the bar for drinking. So yeah, you go to some panels, but you spend most of the time at the bar, okay? And this is called the barracon, okay? The barcon. And so we didn't have any barcon in Hispacon because obviously, but people were chatting on the YouTube chat while we were speaking in the panels. And I was present in many of the panels as a control, so because I'm a control freak, and and I saw that the feeling between the people, among the people that were watching the panels, was like, this is not barracon, but kind of feels like barracon. And it was like the cohesion feeling was growing through the 3 days of the festival, and it was great for us to have this. And I wanted to talk also about something you mentioned, Gabriela. I think it was you. And I think that speculative fiction and also fantasy, it's not considered a serious genre. However, when there is a book or so many books that in this genre that is higher literature, then it is not speculative fiction, or it is not. But forever, since the inception of this genre, we have been talking about big issues, big topics. And it's like, everyone has read science fiction or fantasy or horror that is talking about important things. And for us, we feel that, for us nerds, we feel that when we get together at the barracon, okay, it's like our safe space. It's like in Spain, probably the biggest festival is Celsius 232. It is held in Asturias. It is quite a young festival. It's like 7-8 years old. But it's huge for Spain. For Spanish standards, it's like 9,000-10,000 people in a small town. We invade the town. It's like the locals are nowhere to be seen. Like we take everything, all the space. And it's like, this is my people. I don't know this guy, but he is my people. And you're sitting at the terrace and you're having a beer with a friend, and suddenly whoever comes up, I don't know, Lisa Tuttle comes and sits next to you, and she starts speaking to you like she is someone from the crowd. And I remember in 2019, Cameron, I had the honor to translate a book by Cameron Harley, and she came and we did like a Spanish book tour. And she was saying to me that she loved Celsius because in the US, the cons usually are so expensive that is always the same crowd everywhere, because many people cannot afford to go to cons. In Spain, they are all free. All of them are free. Maybe sometimes they charge like €5 to some people, but usually they are free. So if you go to Celsius, you see I am 42 and I'm old in this crowd. You see people in their teens, even people in the early 20s, people in their 30s. They are the big crowd, people who are probably waiting tables or doing whatever, their first jobs, they don't make a lot of money, but they are there because it's free. So Carmen Howley was telling me that she loved to see this crowd because she said, these are my people. These are the people I write for. And I think it's great. And these online cons, this is even more amplified, because almost everyone I know, I live in a developed country, and I know we all have, almost everyone has online access in Europe. And this is not true for many countries, I know. But it is even less possible to travel abroad for these people who don't have access to the internet. So for me, this is like the one step further in the democratization of these kind of events. So I just checked right now, one of our panels in Hispacon has almost 2,000 views. 2,000 people were able to see someone from another continent or from another country or whatever speaking. In the panel I mentioned before, with 3 Arabic women who write science fiction, how many chances do you think people have to see 3 Arabic women speaking about science fiction? Not many. And for me, this was very exciting, very, very exciting. And I probably lost track, but this is what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Blanca. Thank you. So, Andrea.
I just wanted to gather some of the ideas that everyone has said. And one of the words I think we're using a lot is a word I didn't start using for sci-fi and genre fiction until I went to the US to Clear and West and to the WorldCon. And it's this word of community, of thinking of the genre we write in or we participate in as a community we're making. And I think that's something I started. Yeah, when I went to Clear and West, it was like, yeah, the sci-fi community is here to welcome you. And it felt so nice to realize that this thing existed. And I think one of the parts of Mexicona and how it expanded, Mexicona was just in Spanish, and we wanted that because, as Jeremy says, I think in Spanish, especially here in Latin America, there are not many cons, and these genres are not at all mainstream. And it always feels like people are atomized, and there are like little groups of people who write together and like it, but they don't know each other. And that happens in each of so many countries that we are in this continent. And I think we wanted to start that, to think, okay, are we a Spanish-speaking community of people who do this? And how does it look? And what is each country doing with its people? And I think Uróboros is that too, in a way of trying to start a conversation between people in the same language that have similar experiences in their countries that never get to talk, because, I don't know, it's very, as everyone is saying, with how hard it is sometimes, how easy it is to find translations from English literature, but not necessarily. Well, I've always found it so baffling that in Spanish, you only get other Spanish-speaking countries if they've been published in Spain. So Spain is also a gatekeeper for us. So even if Peru and Chile are so close, I think it's also true that it's harder to find Chilean authors in Peru, and it's easier to find Spanish authors. Or the only way we get Peruvian art authors is if they went through Spain first. And so again, online, we could just take that down, and we could just start the conversations and see what the indie presses were in other Spanish-speaking countries where we don't have a language barrier. We should be able to read each other if we wanted. And so I think that was a big part, to just start to notice and put over the table that that we should be a community, and we should start these talks, and we should try to think about, well, what is sci-fi and fantasy for Spanish in Latin America? What does that mean? Does it mean anything? And so I do find that sense of community so nice. And so that's one of the things that I think we've exported from the US that I really, really like. And I also think that in the sense that I was saying before, and that I think many people have said, of how fandom works and how community works, I think, and how we are all working or thinking about imagination and other ways of being, I think it's so hard not to go to these cons and have those talks about our own field, right? I think one of the great things that happens in cons and on all these panels, and it's happening right now with this talk of a con about the future, where we talk about the future of cons, is that we are always being this meta thing. It's like, how can we make sci-fi different, or what is the future of sci-fi? What is the future of imagination? And I think that's why cons are so important. They bring all these people that do it in so many different ways, artists in fandom and creators in all the kinds of, in all this, I don't know how to say the word I want, but in all the expand of it. And I think a lot of the conversations I had, as Blanca said, in barconing or in panels, are about just thinking about our community and how we want to make it better or different or expand on it. And I think that's why it keeps thriving. We just want to get together and talk about the things we like and how to make them more, more things that we enjoy. So I think that's why we continue to go to them and not go to, instead of book fairs or Congress. I think it's particular to our genre.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. And I'm going to connect just the last part you said with something that Jeremy said before, and well, I think everyone addressed it. It's like a human right to be ourselves. We have the right to be ourselves, and these safe spaces, or these places or non-places that we are building safer for us, bring that possibility of being ourselves. And that's, I don't know, I think it's a human right in the first place. But in another way, and this is my next question to you, and we have only like 15 minutes. What did you learn in this year? They are also asking us in the YouTube chat, what can be done now? How can we boost international voices in our cons and diversity? But also, I think this has to do that community, these gatherings, like boosted our intelligence. We are thinking in community, and we are smarter, way smarter, just because being in contact, and not only smarter in this intellectual way, but also I think emotionally, and also with empathy and with curiousness. And also in our constructions of the future, because let's face it, and we have to be proud of that, we are the people that we are the people that care for the future in a very honest and clean way, contrary to politicians that try to sell us our futures for their political parties and for their economic interests. We are truly interested in building future for our people, our communities, our countries, our communities. So what did you learn in these aspects? What would you extract? And let's extrapolate that. And how do you imagine, since you learn a lot of things doing this, how do you imagine cons in the future? Are they going to be with touch again? Are we going to be gathering physically, or is it going to be a hybrid thing? What do you think? Well, Francesco.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yes, I think there will be a mixed kind kind of convention in a way. People are demanding a virtual track. And of course, I hope that we'll get back to the physical presence, of course. But something has changed. And I think what I call now the new abnormal, it's this new reality we learned to live in. That means that, for example, all the communities that we represent here should have a chance to learn who's our neighbor. As some people said, we all know the most, relevant science fiction coming from the culturally dominant countries, but we don't know our neighbors. And I come from Italy. I don't know what's up going on in Spain or France or Greece or Germany, but I know every single name of US and UK science fiction. So I think that's that's a pretty weird situation. The Latins used to say dividi et impera, it means divide and conquer. So we've been divided and conquered for a very, very long time, as long as the commercial industry of publishing has been promoting this science fiction and this view of the world that was coming from the West, on some kind of West, right? We know that. So my suggestion is that why don't we all get here together? We represent a big community from our countries, and we create a kind of alternative convention. We are here from Brazil, from Italy, from many countries in Latin America, from the US. We should get together and try to join our forces. We can do it. We can do track in Spain. We can do a track in Portuguese. We can do a track in English. But when I mean English, I mean Indian, American, and other speaking countries, other English speaking countries. We could do French track. We could do a lot of amazing things. And if we just put together 3 main languages or 4, let's say Chinese, English, Spanish, and Portuguese, we cover a big part of the world. And yeah, I know that some languages are pretty complicated, but what about the impact of something like that on the imagination of people? Wouldn't that be a real WorldCon, right? Or at least a step closer, at least a kind of approaching a world, a united futures, right? Something that really brings the people together. I'm always been trying to build a network, a small network of small presses, and the FutureCon tries to address this. So I think that now we all had our experience in our local country, in our local community. Let's try to smash those barriers and, have a joint, because maybe some people from US know Spanish, right? Maybe some people from Spain knows English or French or Portuguese, and we can, have this meshed osmosis between the languages and the literatures and I mean, isn't that science fiction?
Yes, thank you. Since maybe you notice in the chat that we have a little bit more time, so you can expand on your imagination of the future. And I also want to address something, forgive me. You all mentioned about the problem that implies access to technology. And also the cost of the technology for the planet and for our bodies. That was a thing that I wanted to ask you. Considering all this, that we have a lot of silver linings from technology and global connectivity, we also have these questions or these matters to address. So please include them in your answers.
Can I just add? Yeah, of course, this is a big issue because I think the many conventions will not have guests of honor flying from one place to the other in the world. So we might have a change in that. We all want to invite the famous American or US riders, but maybe it's about time we invite our own national riders and we save on on the flying costs, maybe. So this also goes in the direction of maybe you have the guest of honor from his house, and you have your national guest from coming, to talk with the writers. Maybe, I mean, some conventions have like 3 or 4 guests of honor. You can maybe just have one. I don't know. I don't want to say, don't invite the people anymore. Of course not. But consider the fact that things now can be done differently. Is a chance.
Thank you. LD?
I'm just gonna echo everything Francesco said. That's just pretty much it. I am doing, I'm also directing Sifwa's Nebula's conference this year. And so what we are trying to do there is include more language variation in terms of our captioning. We're making, I don't think there's not a structure in place formally over there to do like overnight programming that's, appropriately timed for Global South. But there will be like replays and things. So it's small things that you can start implementing. I definitely think we're going to go in a hybrid direction going forward. FIYAHCON, I think, is going to remain virtual just because the accessibility is half the point. But for the NEBs next year in 2022, there will be a hybrid situation. So we're talking about having a room pretty much set aside for virtual viewing. I'm hoping to get some international panels set up for people who can't actually attend. We'll have that available for people to watch virtually as opposed to participating in panels live on site. I don't think there's a way to just go back to just regular in-person events. I think that for better or worse, the pandemic did sort of open people's eyes to what's necessary if you want to actually be an inclusive community, and technology has allowed us to do that. So there are so many applications now that are being developed to facilitate these sorts of things so that we're not just Zoom reliant anymore. And they add different fun elements to them as well, so that there's there's a gaming ability, there's spatial like small table sort of conversation things that are happening now, which are really cool, and I'm hoping we can actually get one of those for FIYAHCON. But yeah, I think we have to go hybrid in the future, if at least hybrid, if not full on virtual, but still dynamic and still fun.
Thank you, LD. So Blanca?
Okay. I think what my colleagues have said is quite what needs to be said. But I wanted to comment that I don't like labels too much, but here in Spain, we have like kind of created a label, which is Hope Punk. And it is stories that in which the main characters are in a hard situation. It may be a dystopia or a war or whatever, but they do fight. Some people mocked the label, but I like to consider Lord of the Rings the foundational book of Hope Punk. And I think that my feelings toward the future now in general, and as in cons, is like, we don't know, but we have to do it. It's like what Samwise says to Frodo when he asked him, I can't do this, Sam. And he says, okay, you can't, but we have to. So what did the people in the past do? Whatever they could. So this is what we're going to do, whatever we can. 5 years ago, we wouldn't be dreaming of doing this. We are doing right now. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't even have almost the internet. It's like, so we don't know what's ahead, but I am pathologically optimistic. And I think there's going to be dire, but it's going to be great too. So let's be Samwise Gamgee and do what we have to, because it has to be done.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Blanca. Jeremy, and please add anything you kept before your internet crashed.
Yeah, okay. I was talking about the Congress of Literatura Fantástica, el Congreso de Literatura Fantástica del Perú, that is the most important event for us because it was the only one. The only one from the perspective of academics that decide to rediscover our history. I remember that I'm not exactly, I'm not sure about this, but I think Elton Honores, el profesor de la Universidad Nacional Mayor de San Marcos, es la punta de que that he is the most important researcher and academic from the sci-fi community or the genre community. He discovered a book from Juan Manuel del Portillo, a book that was written in 1843 and was published in installments in the El Comercio Diary. This book was Lima de aquí a 100 años. And we wonder how many sci-fi writers were silenced because of realism, because of this colonialism, and why? No? So if I go deeper, maybe I extend that theme from the Peruvian perspective, but these kind of events are important for us because they are making us see our history as writers, a community, and we can say we have a past. We have a writer from 1843 that was talking about the future. That Italy have Julio Verne, we have Juan Manuel del Portillo. But how most of that history is hidden, is forbidden, no? That is the real reason this Congress, these events are important for us, because it's not only community, it's about our history. Talking about the future, no, past and future are interconnected. We think these kind of events make possible the dialogue between multidisciplinary people. We have not only writers, we have gestores culturales, cultural managers, we have poets that write science fiction also. We have people that make video games, people that make cine, that make movies, that make music, all these nerds together, we, the nerds together. And I think the most important thing about this is we can be together, like right now, we're in opposite sides of the world and we are together, talking in real time. No? For me, it's 2 p.m., it's hot here, it's summer. I don't know how is the time for you guys, but it's important because transmission makes us democratize the access to these conversations, not only for us, not only for the networks, it's for all the people that is fighting for this, for these spaces. We need to find for us, to make for us, we need to make it last, because if we decide to stop doing this, we'll have nothing left for the community. And I think it's important to give, because if we give the things we have, we cherish the most, we will have people that will give us back what they cherish the most. And this is the conversation we want. And finally, I think the way this dialogue is established, no, make me get the conclusion that the future has no borders. No, future has no borders. We can connect. We can build bridges despite the confinement. No, we can create continental projects, as Francesco says. No, we can disseminate science fiction in a way we don't believe before. No, we are living science fiction right now. No, and literature, our science fiction, no, our literature is a bridge that unites us as a global community, and that's what's important. No, to make this last, to keep talking, and that's what I can say.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, thank you. Andrea?
Okay. So about the future, I don't know if we, for Mexicona, can think much beyond the pandemic, in the sense that, because there is not a lot of history of cons in Mexico or any live events that we could, I don't know what will happen. I think we've decided that we want Mexicona to last whatever it needs to last, in that its form could change. Like last year, it was just talks where we wanted to talk about certain topics with other creators, and we are looking for new ideas of how to maybe change the format or do new things. But I do, looking at all the cons I watched last year, I also think one of the really cool things about having hybrid cons or having online things is that things get stored, right? I think one of the very powerful things about having all the videos up, like this one or all the Mexicona videos, is that people can go back and watch them, or watch them whenever they want. And somehow we are also creating not only a con, but an archive of what happened and what people were thinking about. And I think it's, as Jeremy was saying, past and future are always so interconnected, that having also this history in that people can go back to if they want, or that it's just there for us to go back to. I think that's one of the also powerful points of online, or of, I don't know if online, but of having things up for other people to see, even if they cannot attend the physical con. So I hope, I don't know how hybrid is going to look. I'm excited about hearing about the nebulas in 2022 being hybrid, and seeing how they figure it out, so everyone else can later try to figure out with them. Good luck, LD. But yeah, I hope we keep what we learned, and we integrate what we miss from the old normal, and we figure out how to continue, because I think we've stumbled upon good things in this desperate situation that we should keep.
Thank you, Andrea. So maybe for this last part, I don't want to make another question, but ask you to boost our own projects. Tell, please, people, how can they reach you, your work, not only your work in the community with these cons, but also personally, if you have a latest book out or anything that you want to boost and to make public now, please do that. So let's start again with Francesco.
And I'll go back to Kali, because I think she needs to answer the last question.
I am sorry, right? Kali. I always do that. I'm the worst host of FutureCon.
Okay.
I always just forgot in the last one, someone also. So. A paper bag in my head right now. Okay, sorry, Kali. Please go ahead.
I can do these two things like together already, so I'll answer and then I can. already talk a little bit since we're talking about the future. So Relampeio in specific, I think, is going to always be online, because as we want to bring international voices to Brazil, and we always have two people, two Brazilian authors or editors, like doing hosting and talking to this international guest. And we want to also, because Brazil is a huge country, so we also want to include people from regions which are not, very visible usually, regions which are kind of erased. We have this problem here in Brazil. So there are so many things to put together in order for the festival to be really accessible. And as of someone asked about like, okay, what can we do to like guarantee that panels and cons are more diverse? Well, it's going to sound, I don't know, but literally make like charts and tables, and you can lay out everything. Okay, I want more trans people, I want more Black people, I want more indigenous people, I want more like descendants of Asian people or Asian, so and people from like these regions, people from these continents, and you just like put the names there and you mark, oh, this person is a Black trans woman, so there's going to be there. And you kind of can create priorities, like, okay, so I'm going to invite these people first, I'm going to try and just have these people coming. And when you look at it as a chart, you can see, you know what, I don't have many disabled people here. Where are disabled authors? And then you go ask around, because sometimes we don't know these authors, and it's very easy to just be comfortable with the authors that we already know. It's easy. Like, as Francesco was saying, that he knows like the authors from the United States and from Britain, so it could be very easy for him to just, try and talk to those authors and not talk to people from Latin America, not talk to other people from other countries in Europe. But we have to like just get out of that comfort zone and really look for it. It's fine to admit that we don't know these authors because they are made invisible, and we can change that. We can make them visible. We can make ourselves visible if we're talking about how like it's harder to find people and stories written by people in our own countries when we enter the bookstore or our neighbors. So we can try and use these tools to make ourselves visible and make ourselves heard. And I think, as we're talking about the future, and Gabby said we can already like promote something. So Relampeio is coming up. Our second edition is coming up. It's going to happen from the 1st to the 4th of April. So it's in about a month. We already have some people who were invited confirmed, including Gabriela. So if you want to hear her more, you can tune into, Relampeio Festival in April, and you can subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/Relampeio Festival, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're Relampeio Festival everywhere, and we're trying to make this bigger and more diverse. We'll have more different languages being spoken and translated, and I think it's going to be really, really amazing. So everyone's invited.
Thank you, Kali. Thank you. And forgive me again, please.
Don't worry.
So, Francesco?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as we are here, this is Future Talk. So this is a concept we created after the FutureCon because we wanted to keep the conversation going also the year round, all the year round. We don't have one single moment of gathering, but we try to disseminate this moments across the year, because we want to keep the conversation going. We want to include people, not just once a year. We want to create a community that, keep growing and keep know each other, and add more names and more people and create a snowball effect. So the next FutureCon will happen in some months, but we will have more talks across around the year. So maybe in a couple of other months. For the rest, as you might know, I run a multicultural small press. We published more than 160 stories coming from more than 25 countries in translation from 10 languages. We collaborate with the Chinese publishers, with the Brazilian publishers. We collaborate with UK publishers and US publishers. So if you want to know more, you can just check out Future Fiction, or you can write me, Francesco Verso. You can find me in many social media, social networks. I just think we need to think about gathering our forces, and join our national con into a bigger thing. Then we will give more visibility to people that at the moment are not visible enough and deserve that visibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Francesco. LD?
Can never find the unmute button. FIYAHCON. You can find out details about that at theconvention.fiyahlitmag.com. It's theconvention.fiyahlitmag.com. The event this year is September 16th through 19th. Registration opens March 15th. For me, I'm on Twitter at Ellevillain, ELLETHEVILLAIN, for reasons we don't need to discuss. The magazine, FIYAHLIT Mag, the magazine entity, publishes Black writers from all over the world. So if you are Black, mixed, whatever, we have an open submission period coming up, actually starting tomorrow. And we are actually paying pro rate. So if you're into that, do it. I have a lot of short stories and things coming out soon, because I do too many things. So you can find out, information about stories and such on my website, ldlewiswrites.com. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, LD. We will. Blanca?
Okay, so about Hispacon, we are going to keep doing it for as many years as we can, since we have already been doing it for over 50 years, and we would love to keep this inertia that we have created of bringing people from places that are usually not heard. So we are probably going to do in the future mixed, even if the pandemic is gone. So everyone will be welcome to contact us. Our website is iefct.com. Also, I would love to. This is still nothing. We're still working on it, but I am very excited because we are working with our Italian friends from Riflesso di Luce Lunare. I'm probably saying it wrong. We want to create a European anthology of short stories, because many associations in different countries in Europe, they have their own anthology of short stories. So we want to create a pan-European anthology with the best from each year, from each country.
Sorry, but I'm going to do it in 2 months.
No, sorry. You're not. What is this?
Yes, I am.
Competence. If
the more the merrier.
From an European association is interested in taking part of this, in this, they can contact us. They can find us also on Twitter. As for me, as for myself, I have this wonderful children book, which I would like to have translated into other languages. So if anyone is interested, this is a book that teaches children to question authority, and is full of fantasy. So if anyone is interested, you can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on my website, which is Blanca thank you, Rodriguez. But I live on Twitter. So if you want to find me, go to Twitter. I am Bandarrita with 2 R's. Okay. I'll write it on the chat. And that's it.
Thank you, Blanca. Please, let's have that book translated. If you are hearing translators, we need that. So, Jeremy.
We have 3 books that are free in Lectu, Ecofuturismo, Pool Primitivo, and Cyberterror or Ciberterror, that are compiled by Paul Darmego and Diane Castillo. No? They are part of the team of Speedwagon. And also I want to tell you that we are going to launch Pez del Abismo, that is going to be a publishing imprint from Speedwagon, of which Paul Darmego will be the editorial and executive director. Pez del Abismo will seek to publish international authors in a format that is easy accessible to Peruvians. No? Good quality, but inexpensive, because we have, I want to tell you something fast, because years ago, like 10 years ago, Osvaldo Reynoso, that is a realistic author, the writer from Los Inocentes, LGBT writer, no? And he was my master, and he always asked real important stuff, like why in Peru we want to spend like 60 soles, no, 17 soles, that is kind of like $20, no, in buying books, when people doesn't have that enough to buy books. The books in Peru are a luxury, no? There's something, people doesn't read because they cannot afford the books. So we want to change that somehow, maybe with free books, with inexpensive books. That's what we want to do, like a publishing house. No, that is something that Osvaldo tell us, and he want that to happen. Well, that's for that part. And Uróboros is going to happen in June, I think. And it's going to be with people not only from speaking in Spanish-speaking countries. It's going to have people from all other places. We want to do that with subtitles from them. We're going to pre-record that's part of the convention, to have subtitles. And also we want to have people with translating to sign language, so another communities can reach the events. Also, we know it's important to have ethnicities, people from other religions, sexual orientations, etc. So I want to tell you about Cristian Mateluma. He's an author from Chile. That he writes Neo-Messiah. No? He is trans, and he has an amazing book. And I think it's important to recognize these people that is working in science fiction, that is finding places from them, no? And that's what I can say. That's what I remember right now.
Thank you, Jeremy. And then Andrea, because Kali already talked about Relampeio. Andrea.
So for the future of Mexicona, there are things in the works that I guess I cannot talk about yet. But we are having a big announcement at the end of the end of March, I think the 27th, not just about Mexicona, but very different projects that we created from that are some coming from them. So if anyone is interested in what we're doing, we're on Twitter as @Mexicona, I think, right?
It's Mexicona dash? No, it's not dash. Yes, it's dash. CF.
So we're there, and we'll be announcing all of this. And I am also on Twitter, and I have some translations of stories coming out in the next few months. So if you want to see how I write. Those, I think, are the announcements.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for your time. It was really, really a pleasure to share this space. And I'd like to say goodbye with kind of an invocation. In this case, it's like a farewell to our panel. That was like also the way we say goodbye at Mexicona. And it was like invoking Italo Calvino, who said that we are doing this, I'm paraphrasing, of course, we are doing this to make this place the opposite of the inferno. And we have to make space for that and make it grow. So thank you for making the opposite of the hell and to make it grow with your beautiful work. Thank you very much and see you on our next Future Talk. Bye.
Ciao tutti. Ciao.
Thank you. Gracias.
Ciao.
Gracias. Ciao, ciao.
All right.